The future belongs to those who dare, those who will do extra. Hi, I'm Mark Croskery and welcome to Business Dive Extra, the program that looks beyond dollars and cents to the movers and shakers in business and the capital markets. Our guest graduated from Nova Southeastern University in Davie, Florida, with a bachelor's in business administration specializing in banking and finance. After gaining his master's with a concentration in entrepreneurship, he returned to Jamaica with the intention of applying his entrepreneurship background to grow this company. This dream was realized in 2006 when he joined the 11-member team as general manager. Since then, the company has grown from a distributor of hospital items to also being a major player in the pharmaceutical arena, and most recently, the fast-moving consumer goods segment. If you haven't guessed it yet, our guest today is Mr. Kurt Boothe, CEO of Medical Disposables Supplies Limited, MDS. Kurt, welcome to Business Dive Extra.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark.
No, man, it's great having you on the show.
Let's go.
Yeah, you know, Kurt, you studied banking and finance. You went to Nova. Was there a point in your career where you weren't going to jump into the family business or, let's say, pharmaceutical business, and you were going to do the full-blown finance deal?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here to share with you. There was no point in time that I was not going to join the business. I grew up with a corporate dream, always. I can remember as far back as being 8 years old, wanting to follow in the footsteps of my father in that corporate world. So it's no coincidence that I did study finance and investments, and I had that economic bug that I inherited from my dad. However, this company was started in the year that I graduated from undergrad. From inception, from the idea stage, I was kept in the loop, I was involved, and I was quite excited at the opportunity of ownership. And I think that's where I had a mind shift towards ownership and entrepreneurship.
What year was MDS started?
We got off the ground in the year 2000.
In the year 2000?
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty much I graduated in June 2000.
Okay. And the company was started by both of your parents, or was one kind of the mover shaker and just got it going?
On different sides. It was started by both. My mother being the brainchild, having all the experience in the field. So my mother was a nurse from way back, different eras of nursing. She even taught nursing in the government here. I grew up walking through hospitals. So that's her extensive background. She later became a sales rep and a med rep and a sales manager for a market leader here. And that's where she got her experience. So she was the brainchild behind it. My father was the administrative support and the capital contributor. So yes, they both went hand in hand.
So your mom was a bit on the relationship, the marketing side, and your dad was really the finance accounting?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. So,
right.
So fantastic team, worked out really well?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And who would you say really pushed you more in your education pursuit, or who have you ended up being more like, or are you the combo package?
I would say the combo package. So I wonder sometimes, how could I have been so blessed? Both my parents have been role models for me, and the differences have become complementary. So my father always being the corporate man, the accounting man, the auditor, the economist, that side of things, and I always wanted to emulate him. I grew up always wanting to be like him. So, and it's funny what you learn along the way. Growing up, you're not even realizing that you're learning. So I think I got that side from him. Now, my mother, on the other hand, outside of being a nurse and having that background, she's what you call a Rhodes Scholar, right? ROAD Scholar, right? So she came up through the School of Hard Knocks, and she's a very discerning individual, very street smart, and she's on that sales relationship side and really, I mean, a true Jamaican gem, which is a very, very strong woman, right? And so the combination of the two, I think that's what I benefited from.
And if you take us back, 21 years ago, Kurt, in those days, your parents get the company started. I mean, a lot of people in the year 2000 thought the world was ending. It was a dot-com bubble, all of those things. So your parents took a big risk. It was also the years of, somewhat of a financial meltdown in Jamaica. So your mom and dad jumped into this. I mean, how did they come up with a name? Whether the brand was the same or different back then, but how did the whole idea come out? Take us back to then when you weren't in the driver's seat in the year 2000.
Well, when my mother separated from the company, it was really up in the air what it was that she was going to do, what direction was she going to take. I remember there being a couple opportunities, job opportunities for her, and she kind of sat back and reflected. And the inspiration came one day just from a neighbor outside saying, "Mrs. Boothe, why don't you start something for yourself?" And I remember being abroad, being away at school, and having a conversation with her. And instantly, that was the beginning, and we never looked back. So in a way, it was kind of started out of survival.
Does a neighbor ever joke with your mom and say, "I should have got some shares in the company"?
No, he never does. But to this day, I thank him for the idea, right? and the nudge to move forward. So the name would have come from the strength. My mother had the strength, being a nurse and coming up. This was the era of her strength, knowing the hospitals, knowing the hospital world, and what their needs were in a very intimate way. So she wanted to capitalize on the strength in the disposable segment of the business, and that was a concentration of the business in the beginning.
What's kind of like we take it for granted, whether we're going to the hospital, wherever we go to, public or private or however we get it done, especially applicable in these times. What's a disposable? I don't know, like what's a top 3 disposable? What's a top 5 disposable that MDS focus on and wins that business in Jamaica?
Probably a good question. The name somewhat is self-explanatory. Anything you dispose of in a hospital could be classified as a disposable. But generally speaking,
so like an injection, or?
Right. So generally speaking, you're talking about, right? So like needles, syringes.
Needles. Okay.
Even if you look at the caps and gowns that your surgeons wear or your nurses wear, or even the tubes or catheters that you put in, you're talking about gloves, anything like that.
It's a good business.
It's a very good business.
It's kind of like deodorant in a way, or as Warren Buffett says, like shaving cream. You got to keep using it.
So it's an excellent business in more ways than one. For one, you're selling need and you're not selling want, right? So there'll always be a need in good times and bad, right? So there's stability there, and every time you dispose of something, you actually need another one. Right, so I always say what I love more than business is repeat business, right? So it's perfect for repeat business.
Yes.
Right, and they keep coming.
That's good. Yeah. So your mom got this idea. She got the business going. Did your dad come in at the same exact time in the year 2000, or was he like a couple of years after as the business picked up? And but even if he was always there in a support. Yeah.
No, the support was there instantly. I mean, the support was there for capital. Right, so you're going nowhere without capitalizing your business, of course. Yeah. But he was that administrative rock. So even though the business started out of survival, and startup was rough, it was very, very rough. It was very, very rough. But however, from day one, the business was always administratively streamlined. So I remember the early days when a bank or an institution would look at us. And they would always be surprised that, okay, our audit is always on time and in order and things like that.
So they had that 1-2 punch from the early days.
Absolutely. And it was very complimentary.
Yeah. And, today, the company, Hagley Park Road, you got a great looking building, the brand is up. We came and visited you, you see your inventories. I mean, it just looks like it's humming. Things are going well. Yeah. Where did your mom and dad get that business started? Or like, how did it get going in the early 2000s, as compared to where it is today?
Well, Mark, where we started resembled nothing like where we are now. And I can say to God be the glory. The business started out of the living room and the car trunk. So in the early days, my mother would literally be driving around the country.
And what's your mom's first name?
Murtis Boothe.
Murtis, okay.
Murtis, right. So she would be driving around the country asking for patronage. At this time, being away at school, I would save up, being away at school and work, I'd save up all my free time, holidays, vacation, right, to come back, whether it was packing a box, lifting a box, going with her on the road to meet the people.
Your work ethic really started going. I mean, these were your summer jobs, Kurt. These were Christmas jobs, whatever it was.
It's very difficult to grow up in my household and family and not have strong work ethic.
Yeah.
Right?
So dinner, whatever it was, business was being spoken about
absolutely.
With your family.
Around the clock, but passionately so. It's always been a passion of ours. So we love it. We enjoy it. So as they always say, if you enjoy what you're doing, you're really not working at all. That's how it was, But I remember the early days. It wasn't easy to get business at all.
Yes.
And I actually remember coming down on a holiday, and one of our first shipments, it got damaged, and I remember my mother actually crying in my arms, wondering if we made a mistake. And I remember telling her, no, not at all. We are going to make it. So
in those years, you were helping out just part-time. You were helping out when you could.
When I could. I was away at school. I was away working as well. So, I mean, I'd save up vacation days. I remember I had an injury and I had to go do surgery. And I put off the surgery because I had to come to Jamaica to help out anyway at all. I remember begging for business. I remember being turned away. I remember the early days of getting stationery by going into the bank and asking for extra rubber bands and paper clips, literally, and extra pens. And I remember when we finally got an office, when the living room became too crowded with boxes and stuff, I remember we got an old room on the side of someone's office. And he rented us that space.
And that's where you started to get going?
That's where we started to get going. But that one room to us was our Empire State Building.
At that time?
It was everything to us at that time.
Yeah.
And I said it was really, really rough until we had an opportunity to get a contract after a while. And we were not located in an area that was commercially zoned. And we missed that opportunity, and at that point we got the jolt to move. That's how we ended up in the Domes on Hagley Park Road.
Perfect. We're going to come right back to that.
Okay.
We take our first break on Business Live Extra. More when we return. Welcome back to Business Live Extra. Medical Disposables Supplies Limited is an island-wide distributor of healthcare and consumer products. They have a catalog that spans pharmaceuticals, vaccines, injectables, hospital supplies, medical disposable items, etc. MDS Ltd actively ensure that the brands they represent are on the shelves of health and personal care resellers, but also facilitate their walk-in clients. Their taking care proposition is shown through their commitment to package them at the finest value and deliver this through genuine care and inviting service. MDS also aims to provide an unparalleled experience in every aspect of customer interaction. Also a world-class offering that will better the lives of their partners, work, family, shareholders, and the communities they serve. We are speaking to Mr. Kurt Boothe, CEO, Medical Disposable Supplies Limited, MDS. Kurt, welcome back.
Thanks again.
You're giving us, that whole story and just the history of the offices and what ended up being a blessing and, how you ended up moving to the Domes at Hagley Park.
Right.
And when you got to the Domes, what transpired after? Or what really was the next move? And what was the tipping point when the business really just started to kind of fly?
It's very difficult to pinpoint an exact point, however, because you see, the entrepreneurship trek is one which involves a lot of dedication and tenacity, to say the least. It takes you even on an emotional roller coaster. The highs are high, the lows are low. But in keep going at it, we really started to build up steam, and it actually became, once we developed momentum, the growth became constant, and there was always a dream, always a vision, and always what's next. So my mother started alone. She got a right hand, if you will, someone who was very dedicated, and the calls started to come. We started to sell more products. One employee turned into two over time turned into three. You know, you needed, after a while, we needed someone dedicated to lift up boxes or so. After a while, you needed an extra sales rep. And when I got back here in '06, the team was, I think, yes, it was about 11 of us.
When would you say the family started to really buy into the business model? Was it
Always,
when you were...
From before the business started.
Really?
From before the business started, the dream was there.
Was there?
The dream was there from the very beginning. So we've always been chasing the dream. There's always been full buy-in.
Were there any points where it was just like, you know, you gave the story earlier about the goods when they were damaged, but has there been any point in the last, whether it's 5, 10, 15 years, that were just incredibly challenging, like what every company goes through, and it was just a tough time that you can recall?
The challenges are ongoing as well. So, but I think once we got over the initial startup, every day you wake up with a mindset to say, okay, which fire is going to come first out, right? So your drive has to be bigger than the challenge. But yeah, there have been challenges along the way, and fortunately for us, along the growth path, a lot of our problems were good problems to have. So once we really started to get out there and in the marketplace, not only were we seeking additional business, but we became visible on the road within the industry, and you had some players that actually reached out to us. So once we started in representation of one particular company, you found that another one came knocking. And I would say that we enjoyed a lot of growth in the disposables area. And once we started, our first major contract was a vaccine line. So today, thankfully, we are one of the island's biggest distributor of vaccines. And from that, another drug company came on. And at that point in time, I think...
I like how you say that. If I was in your shoes, I wouldn't call her name either. You know?
we have a number of partners. We have a number of partners, and it's out there. But once the other drug company came on, I think the challenge now was to find the capital to step up to the plate, because we were entering another phase of the growth cycle. And what you'll find along your entrepreneurship journey, at some point in time, you really have to capitalize that business, whether in the beginning or along the way, and you have to look for different means of capitalizing a business, and creatively so from time to time.
And MDS has done that. You know, you've shown there's been many phases, of MDS's growth.
Absolutely.
And Kurt, one would perceive you as a campionite, I would say. You know, a lot of successful.
I'm not sure why.
a lot of successful, corporate Jamaicans or CEOs of public companies seem to have gone through Campion, but you're actually a Woolmer's old boy.
Proudly so. Proudly so.
Good to hear you say that.
Proudly so. And if you really look, you'd find that there are quite a bit of business leaders in this country that were fortunate enough to attend the great institution at Hero Circle.
And did they say it as loudly as you have today?
Absolutely, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
And you're involved still with the school?
Yes, always.
Okay.
Always.
All right. And you were actually a track star and a football star as well?
I'm not sure about star. At Woolmer's, I got involved in sport very early, competitively from about 9 years old.
But you were aspiring for the Olympics for Jamaica at one stage?
I was just always aspiring for success, and always had a refusal to lose that has come over even into my business life and everything. But funny enough, I was born a shy child, And I think I had a coming out party once I started to participate in competitive sports. And I never thought of myself as talented, but I always knew that I'd be the most determined person, whether it be on the track or the field. And funny enough, I even represented Jamaica in track and field at age 11.
Okay.
And at that point in prep school, I was introduced to the greatest sprint coach in the world today, Mr. Stephen Francis, and had the benefit of him being my coach.
Yes.
And it was when he left to further his studies, very early in my life at Wolmer's, that I stopped running. He was a huge influence and mentor, and I just didn't respond to any other coach. And I left and I went to play football, and that stopped early as well, because I think I got a little distracted with some adolescent influences, you know.
Well said. So you have a good reason for why that career never happened, and you really transitioned it into MDS.
Yeah.
No, you went to Nova.
Yeah.
And as we said earlier, you studied finance, banking, and you actually ended up at American Express Financial Advisors.
Yes.
So during that stage, you still were always focused on coming back to the family business, or was there a chance that maybe you would have pursued this financial services career, which, you know, a lot of gentlemen your age have gone the financial services route?
I always had an interest and a love for the world of finance. And if I wasn't doing this, that's where I would have seen myself, right? Education has always been very big in my family growing up. In my household, you had no choice, right? And that was the area of study that I enjoyed. I loved it in studies, I loved it in practice. And being at American Express was an extremely good foundation. The training there was unmatched. I was fortunate enough to be licensed as a financial advisor, which took me to...
In the U.S. markets?
Yes, in the U.S. markets. And I then moved on in the era of administration with a global mutual fund company, Franklin Templeton Investments. That was an amazing experience as well. And it really gave me a lot of exposure in the first world and global markets.
So even long before the Jamaica financial markets were really evolving and taking off, you were seeing this, the products, the services in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. But the dream was for ownership. And the dream was for ownership, but I needed to come back with some amount of experience. I needed to come back with some amount of experience, and I needed to build my own CV. And I didn't want to take just ownership like that. I really wanted to bring experience to the table. And so that was part of the plan and the journey. And I encourage youngsters to do the same thing today.
No, great. You know? So, some families actually mandate it, whether informally or formally. You know, did your mom or dad ever say, look, you got to go get 3 years experience or 5 years experience, or this is just something that you had embedded in you that you wanted to get that experience?
No, I think it was mutual. It was never mandated, but there is always a discussion. And as I keep alluding to, growing up in my family, in my household, it's always about education. So, and the thing about it is there's always a free-flowing discussion. My parents, my uncles, aunts, the same held true for them as well. So I always had a lot of mentors, and I was always seeking mentorship. So I'd always bounce things from off of my elders as to what path to take, what direction, and kind of just chant a course. So it was always mutual. It was always a discussion. I remember at one point in time, my father wanting me to come back earlier than I'd wanted to, and I think he was worried that I would end up probably staying there, or even at one point getting so caught up in working before furthering my studies, and I wouldn't come back to it. But I willfully refused to come back until the journey and the targets were fulfilled, and did so successfully, thank God.
Yeah. And when you started with MDS, you weren't always the CEO or the head honcho. No. What job title or what role, say, did the board of directors put you into when you just started? Well,
at that time, the board of directors was a family, and
you weren't public yet. You're still a private entity.
We weren't public yet, so I was general manager. So I moved after 11 years in the U.S. I moved to Jamaica one Sunday evening and was at Hagley Park Road on the Monday morning, right? And work started instantly. My title was general manager, but I was not given a job description.
Right.
But I was extremely familiar with the business from the idea, from the start. While I was away, I remember the phone bills would get so high that we had to get a special calling plan because every night was like a board meeting.
Yes.
Right. So always very intimate with the goings on. So I hit the ground running and you know, kind of just found my own footing. It worked very well because immediately I took up a lot more of the administrative side. My mother would then concentrate on the business relationships and the technical side of things. And then my concentration at that point in time was putting the business together, strategically growing the business, you know, along the way.
But it was really, based on what you're saying, it was a slow and steady process.
Yes,
it was never really topsy-turvy or this roller coaster, just like fast. It seemed like it was very slow and steady, and it was just moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and the biggest lesson I learned in coming back to Jamaica is that Rome isn't built in a day, right? Not at all. I remember when I got back, my first day on the job, funny if I have the file to this day, a hard copy and a soft copy, and I made a file and I titled it, "What the hell am I doing?" Right? And every day was filling that file, answering that question.
Yes.
Right? And it was baptism by fire, and you just had to survive.
So I'm get into it.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to that. We take another break on Business Dive Extra. More from Mr. Kurt Boothe when we return. Welcome back to Business Dive Extra. The acquisition of Cornwall Medical Dental Supplies Limited by MDS Ltd was a 275 million Jamaican deal that gave MDS a 60% stake in the Montego Bay business. Medical Disposables Supplies Limited had a profit of Jamaican 25 million in the June quarter from a loss of Jamaican 7 million compared to last year. MDS operates 3 divisions: consumer goods, pharmaceutical, and medical supplies. The company boosted its sales force in line with the increased consumer demand for pharmaceutical and medical disposable items. The consumer division has about 14 brands in its portfolio. Let's find out more about the bounce back and the big wins of MDS Limited from CEO Kurt Boothe. Kirk, welcome back.
Thanks.
Yeah. MDS, I mean, from when you went public to now, you know, your market cap right now, roughly 1.2, 1.3 billion. You know, how you feel about your market cap without getting you in any trouble today?
We're happy. We're happy with where we are, and we're happy with the promise that we see ahead.
And you, no regrets, you love that you guys went public, you feel good about it, and just the brand and everything?
Haven't regretted it a day in my life. The going public came from the need, as I mentioned earlier, to capitalize the business. Now, some of the rough times that we had along the way were good problems to have. So once we started to expand, the need for capital, for more capital that is, would come about, and we had to get very, very creative. At this point in time, we looked at the junior market as an option, as one option. I started to study it, and in the beginning, my chairman, being my father, was all for it. At the time, the managing director, my mother, was completely against it, and I was studying it in the middle to see if it was a fit for us.
The yin and the yang continued.
Yeah, so I was studying it to see if it was a fit for us.
So were you like the deciding vote?
Yes. so after looking at it closely, I said this is a perfect fit. I think it was a wonderful initiative for this country, for growing small and medium enterprises as well, and it gave us an opportunity with access to capital, not to mention that the 10 years tax benefits did not hurt at all, and we used that for retooling and growth. to this point, and we're still enjoying some of that as well. As we benefited from that, and looking at the whole thing altogether, it was a benefit. It was a little bit of culture shock at first.
Was it like the governance and the financial reporting? Was the thing?
Yes, for sure.
Like you have a business journalist calling you a recorder?
For sure. Prior to that, your board meeting was probably a phone call at night that didn't end till 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And then you got a little bit more structured, and there's a lot more governance to the point that you wonder if this is still your business. But there, but there's a lot more accountability.
Yes.
That comes with it. That comes with the territory. But you know what? That's an absolute good thing, because even sometimes you have to protect yourself from yourself, and the governance was very welcomed, and we've benefited a lot from it. Even if you're looking at accessing more capital, if you're looking at taking on even larger multinational partners, it's a very good look. So we have benefited as a corporation.
So in hindsight, the real big decision, or what really drove the board of directors at the time, private company, was really you want to get more capital into the business, like a lot of
that was a
companies.
driving factor. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get that balance sheet revved
That was a driving
up
factor
for this
for
growth.
Sure. For sure.
And Kurt, nowadays, I mean, lots of stuff is happening with MDS. I mean, you even look at yourself now. You're here today. You're on Business Live Extra. You're fully branded.
Right.
I mean, of course, even your mask today is branded. I mean, it's amazing. Even if you look at yourself, how you've transformed in the last couple of years, and your billing is branded. Your annual report has been jazzed up.
Yeah.
I mean, is this all a part of that whole transformation in going public?
Well, the thing is, we had a culture early on of being very stealth-like, operating under the radar. And it benefited us a lot, and a lot of larger players didn't see us coming, right? And deliberately so.
So anyway, MDS was always this like underdog, but you were bigger than what the market thought.
Underdog, somewhat underground, but yeah, we were always bigger than we seemed, and I think we crept up on some larger competitors that way. But once we got public, our life changed. Everything was all out there.
You found like, a lot of public companies don't maybe talk about it, but you found even vendors would treat you a bit differently. Like you can afford this now, or here's a higher price, or not necessarily.
Not necessarily the vendors, and I mean you're always bargaining for the best position. Who treats you with a little bit more respect, or let's say financing institutions, right? Because your information is more readily available, so they have quick access to it, and they can tell right away whether you're healthy or not. They have a lot of respect for the structure and the governance that comes with your organization at this point in time. And a huge benefit is not only the initial access to capital with your initial public offering, but the continued access to capital, right? And the options that you have thereafter.
Yes.
Right. So there are a number of different options. Some cards that we still keep in our back pocket at this point in time, and it's always good to have options.
Yeah. So, besides your market capitalization, your share price, near your 52-week high, you might even blow past that, based on you have 2 distribution agreements, consumer product side, the deal, Montego Bay. I mean, so there's a lot of good corporate action items, they call them, coming out on medical disposable. What's driving that side now? Is it to just ramp up the business, go after more growth or more market share, or where is all this kind of strategy coming from all of a sudden?
Well, we've always been a growth company. We've always been primarily concerned with growth. From inception, it's always been concentration on growth. Right, even more than personal income. It's growing the business, it's growing the company. That's at this point in our DNA. So we're always looking at growth strategies in terms of a stock. We consider ourselves a growth stock, a fundamental stock, probably a defensive stock, because there's still business for us even in the bad times, in the down times. Now that we're going through the pandemic, there are tremendous opportunities for us during this time, and so we've always been growth focused. In recent times, even you mentioned the stock price. Looking at the stock price has never been our primary focus. Our primary focus has always been to be fundamentally sound, right, and make the tough and prudent management decisions to grow the company, right, and the market will react thereafter. That's really where our focus has been.
Well said.
You know, thank you.
And with that said, Kurt, you know, you have been pushing more and more into the consumer side.
Yes.
You've always said, okay, we're in these 3 segments. You used to be 2, but more and more consumer.
Yes.
And we're seeing MDS represent more and more consumer brands.
Right.
Is that a net margin play? Is that a play? Is it a diversity play and a net margin? Because some market analysts, you know, they kind of take a hit at MDS for the net margin. They want to see you, the boss, now grow the net margin. They don't want to compare you to Wisynco. You know, Wisynco is a different company,
right,
but Wisynco is making roughly a 10% net margin. So MDS has billions of revenue, and so they're saying, okay, how are we going to pull this down? And so, but there is a direct strategy, it seems, coming out of your camp to push more into consumer products. Is it a net margin play or is it a diversity play?
You know, Mark, I don't even know where to start on that one because I could take it from so many angles.
Well, we have all day, so we're giving you the
right.
we're giving you the platform.
No, for sure. So the growth strategy, you have to look at the big picture.
Yeah.
So we have, I mean, we're a perfect case study for any entrepreneurship course. Sorry, and coming through the different phases of the business growth cycle, we've been through them, right? From your startup, your survival, you know, your initial growth, and we're at a stage where we're a little bit more mature right now. A couple years ago, we employed a strategy called thinking inside the box, and that was geared towards improving our internal infrastructure because we were now at a stage where we saw our competitors are now the largest companies in Jamaica. So you've mentioned another large player. And I mean, we're coming from a smaller position, but we realized that we had to retool, we had to reinvest. So a lot of the costs that you see growing that keep down the net margin is a result of our constant retooling, right?
So you think it might not be cost that's there when your platform gets to where you want it to be?
If you're an analyst looking at the numbers, you're going to probably look at the line items as costs. But if you look through that lens of cost, we look through another lens where we see it as investments, right? So we're seeing it as investments to move forward, and it's this constant investment, this constant retooling that has been responsible for the growth, while we're no longer driving around Jamaica with a trunk full of products, begging people or peddling our wares.
So in a way, Kurt, what you're really saying is that you're building out a foundation, this massive machinery that one day it's going to be a fixed cost.
Right.
And that profit should just come piling on.
Right. But we're building up to that. So the other question that you asked in moving into the fast-moving consumer goods segment is definitely a diversification play. So consider this a portfolio that we have to be diversifying now. So we started in the era of disposables, and that's responsible for our medical division today, where we distribute to hospitals, doctors, medical centers. The pharmaceutical division focuses on our customers being the pharmacy network across the length and breadth of Jamaica, where we're selling and providing the prescription drug items. Now, we looked at it, and the interest in the consumer segment is that it adds another dimension as a distributor.
For your customers.
So you're no longer a medical company or a drug company or just limited to the healthcare sector.
You're doing the whole sphere.
You're now a full service distributor.
Great.
So we're now providing, we're now in other channels. We're selling to supermarkets, to wholesales, to beauty stores, to spas, to the little stall man on the sidewalk, right? And we have another dimension, we have another reach.
You can keep adding on to it.
Absolutely. So once you lay that foundation, you can add onto that. The other strategic play too is that, you see, when you're involved even in the pharmaceutical area, there's some over-the-counter items that you will have to provide that we have already started to provide. So if you're not in the channels of the consumer segment, then you won't be able to roll out those products.
Got it.
So it is a strategic play. It really does add another dimension, and it's a medium-term play for us, and we're very happy with the progress.
Good. We're going to come right back to that point. We take another break on Business Dive Extra. More with Kurt Boothe, CEO of MDS Ltd, when we return. Welcome back to Business Dive Extra. The distribution sector is extremely competitive in Jamaica, the Caribbean, and globally. It's a go-to sector for many entrepreneurs, family offices, conglomerates, investment banks, and hedge funds. MDS Ltd has recently entered into 2 arrangements for distribution, clearly signaling the company's intention to diversify their products, but also MDS's push to gain market share in Jamaica. Mr. Boothe team added Simply Benjamin's Cosmetic, Black Castor Oil, True Natural Product brands. For a final time, we're talking to Kurt Boothe, CEO of MDS Ltd, about these moves, the sector, and if MDS Ltd has further growth plans organically or inorganically, and if anything is on the horizon for MDS regionally. Kurt, welcome back.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You know, looking at MDS, are you the only publicly traded, you mentioned it in the beginning, Disposables started you, but only publicly traded pharmaceutical medical supply company at this stage?
No, I don't think we are the only. No, we're definitely not the only one. But
who else kind of jumps to mind or gets into the business as a?
There are other companies on the market that are involved in this area. There is Indus Pharma, there is Lasco, and a segment of it as well.
That's a Lasco distributors.
Yeah, there's a segment of that as well. But each company that you find has its own niche and its own area. Has a little niche in it. Okay. So none of the companies are directly identical, or if you compete, you may compete in different areas or different segments.
So those 2 that you mentioned maybe big into pharmaceuticals, while you would have started off in disposables and you have your pharmaceutical side.
Or we may all be big in pharmaceuticals, but we may have different products, definitely different product lines, or one may be in pharmaceuticals and bigger on the consumer side. One may be more heavily concentrated in pharmaceuticals itself and one segment of pharmaceuticals, and another one may have a different combination.
Yeah. How tough has that been as still a relatively young public company? I mean, you've been listed for a few years, but right. How has that kind of been for the team, for you and the team? Taking on like the backbone or taking on another business and a pretty substantial acquisition, for your balance sheet.
I don't think it has been rough at all. Just that the tasks become tedious. But it hasn't been rough at all, and thank goodness that we had the foresight to prepare to have a team, right, that could take a good stab at this. And so far, we're pleased. We're pleased with how things are moving.
Yeah. Is there anything you can share there, Kurt? Like, it's a well-known pharmacy brand. Especially if you venture into Montego Bay and drive around and you see CoreMed Pharmacy. It's a nice brand. Is there a plan, to maybe open up more under that brand, CoreMed Pharmacies? We could see it maybe in Kingston one day, or we could see it in other areas, or is that just something where you're gonna keep it as is?
No, there are no plans to expand that pharmacy network at all.
Okay.
We were never in retail, but we welcomed it as part of the package. We bought into a company, Cornwall Medical and Dental Supplies Limited. Prior to this, they were a competitor of ours, a friendly rival of ours, and their pharmacies were our customers as well. So in somewhat of succession planning, we engaged and we came to terms, and we found a suitable path that would be symbiotic. It would benefit us both. And for us, it's a wonderful addition. The area of the medical disposables, automatically we now join forces with a competitor, so that gives us a wider share of that market, which is a core function of ours, which we become even a stronger force in that market segment. We add a new segment that we were not into before. We're now a dental supplier, and we like our prospects in that area. We're very, very confident about doing great things in that area as well. And then there's a retail segment that offers a pharmacy, which adds a bit of vertical integration, So, but the whole package fits very nicely for us. Our first year will involve mostly alignment, and ensuring, because if you don't marry the cultures, you know, that can be disruptive in a negative way.
Sure. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. So we're looking at aligning each of the companies and structuring it and achieving some amount of economies of scale.
Learning from that deal, and you know, and what your team has learned, and you know, doing deals like this. Are there other pockets or other companies like that in, you know, other parishes out there that, as you said, nobody's kind of looking at, but you have friendly rivals with, and this becomes a kind of turnkey model for MDS?
What I'll say right now is that MDS is open for business as far as acquisitions are concerned. And if there's a right fit, if there's a right fit, then we would pursue same.
Yeah.
Right, but there are other companies that are out there. If we can come to an understanding where we can create a win-win scenario, then look out. Yeah.
And anything on the horizon, like, you know, potential? Would you have to tap the market maybe for a rights issue, corporate bonds? You mentioned earlier bankers. Now, you know, you have a great relationship with the bankers in terms of, you know, you're public. They can just download the information. But to do more and more deals, do you think you'll have to, you know, more and more have the relationships with a strong investment bank or investment bankers and tap the capital markets a bit more in the future to go to another phase of the company's growth?
The good thing is that we have options. The good things is we have options. My mother always told me growing up, never play your last card first. All right? So we have a few cards in the pocket, and we're always looking at opportunities. And I think that one probably may involve looking at a number of factors. Look at your debt to equity position, and looking at where you are with your balance sheet and maintaining that balance. And I could say that there could be a possibility that we could venture, I mean, with a particular corporate action that would take us to market again, or so forth. But we're measuring it. We're continually measuring it. And if we see an opportune time, then we're not afraid to execute.
Yeah. No, that's good. And these recent distribution deals, you know, Miracle Corporation deal, other deals, PA Benjamin, these relationships. How significant, how material are these to the business? Or is it just a start of something where you're preempting the market, that there could be other deals like this coming on? Or, you know, we are open for business at MDS, you know, carrying your consumer products, come and check us.
We're definitely open for business, but we're open for the right business. This is the newest addition to our portfolio. Well, other than the acquisition, of course, but this in the core of MDS, the consumer division is the newest side of things. So we've been dabbling in this area for about 3 years. So right now we're more at a seed planting stage, and of course you best believe that we'll water and fertilize and grow it. So initially, the strategic plan is to get in the channel, and we gradually grow it thereafter. We're happy with the products we've taken on, some quality products. You've mentioned some new relationships that we've taken on this year. Miracle Corporation, with them we do some personal products with a brand of natural soaps, True and Natural, doing very, very well. They surpassed my expectations. I did not know that they were already in the market, but having taken them on, I did not know that the market responded so positively. They're all natural products, and you know, you can definitely see a market shift towards that. So there's certainly a consumer appreciation for it. Last month we launched a new line with them as well, Naked Care. So it's even naked of fragrance, and it is so because some people have sensitive skin. You know, so we're touching different needs and niches, not necessarily jumping into crowded spaces. We also have even another cleaning soap with them, you know, Blue Max Blue Soap as well for laundry as well. You know, you mentioned PA Benjamin's, the partnership with them. We have under our beauty brands segment. In the consumer area, we have beauty brands where we have beauty products, confectionery and snacks, as well as some home care items. So Benjamin's Cosmetics falls under beauty brands. Benjamin's, of course, a household name. We have about 12 SKUs of Jamaican black castor oil beauty products, right? Doing very, very well, very, very well. I'm actually wearing it right now. And in we mentioned Miracle Corp before, along with Benjamin's, we have a new line, Simply, which has a lot of personal care items, flavorings, and home remedies.
And so what's good, Kurt, is you really divided the company into three cells or so, and so you have that consumer division, growing now. Yeah. And where really do you want to see the company in 3 to 5 years? As you're in the driver's seat, you're pushing this business forward. Yeah. You have your board of directors, but where do you want to see MDS? You mentioned some comparatives, Lasco distributors in this pharma, but focusing on you, where do you want to see MDS, get to in 3 to 5 years or even longer term?
Right. And we're not necessarily focused on being the biggest, right? But we're focused on being the best at what we do. We're in 3 to 5 years, definitely looking at a diversified position, looking at the smaller areas, growing the smaller areas of the company, but never ever losing focus on our core, which is even why we divided the company into divisions. So each area would have its particular focus, but more importantly, never to lose any focus, right? We roll out the red carpet for our partners. We never intend to roll it back up, right? And definitely to see us more diversified. We're certainly open to any other acquisition possibilities, but once the right fit presents itself, we feel as if we're structured to do so, and certainly to grow the core business that we have as well. So we definitely expect to be bigger than we are right now, maintaining a healthy balance sheet position and constantly replowing. But you alluded to something earlier in looking at that cost structure to reach that cutoff position where you have your baseline costs and you're now growing on top of it. Yes. So yes, absolutely growing the profitability is a must. Is a must.
And when we visited you, we noticed just like how your mom moved it, you've moved the needle, you moved from the domes to where you are now. Right. It looks like sooner rather than later you might have to move and increase your capacity again with the growth that you're bringing to MDS.
I can say where we are, capacity is a concern, so we may have to be looking in that area.
You don't have to say too much. It's been great having you, Kurt. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming on Business Dive Extra.
Thanks a lot. The pleasure was all mine.
And the branding is A1. Great stuff.
Thanks again.
Keep living the brand.
All right.
That's it for another edition of Business Dive Extra. Remember, an investment in knowledge pays the best dividends. We've been talking with Kurt Boothe, CEO of Medical Disposables Supplies Limited, MDS. Don't forget, you can watch us online at cvm.com/videos/Business Dive Extra. Thanks for joining us.